G'day shooters, Mike from Foresight Tactical. Today we're going to run through how to give your rifle its own custom paint job. I've been doing it for a long time now, probably since my days in operations, and I continue the practice now as a sporting shooter and hunter. You'll see I've just finished the gun here in front. It's a 6.5mm Camo. I finished painting that yesterday, and I'm going to get the old 308, the old workhorse here. It was painted probably a couple of years ago now. I'm going to give it a touch up. You can see it's got a new scope on it, it's got a new set of rings as well, as the old paint job has worn off over time. Why do we paint the gun? I suppose one, helps aid in camouflage, two, it also will actually help protect the weapon from the elements there as well. Another reason, I suppose, it does give them a bit of character and gives the gun its own personality. This one here, again, the old workhorse. It had the old Ace of Spades stencil onto the stock there. I'll show you how to make the stencils. I'm going to make a stencil for the Creedmoor. It has been nicknamed or dubbed Frankenstein. The reason it's got the nickname, it's just made up of a mishmash of parts. It's got a swan barrel. We're using a Schmidt-Bender scope. I've got an AI level on there. I've got my ultimatum action. It's a Thompson stock with a Harris bipod. Atlas bottom metal there as well. So with that whole mishmash of parts there, it's been dubbed Frankenstein. So I'm going to make a Frankenstein stencil that I'm going to spray on the back of the gun. Prior to painting, probably one of the most important things we've got to do is clean the firearm. When it comes to cleaning, I'll use generally a brake cleaner and some sort of firearm cleaner there. This one here I've got a bit of Hoppy's Black. Again, I don't have any preference as to what cleaner to use. I'll even use a bit of Windex every now and again. But we just want to make sure that the gun is free of any oil. If there's any oil on the gun, okay, the chances of the paint adhering to that surface are reduced and will cause the paint to come off prematurely. When we look at the paint there, I've got 3 different types here, just stuff I've collected over the years. I've got no preference on the brand there. I've got some high chem, I've got some Rust-Oleum, and I've also got some Krylon. Again, all of them are of a flat nature, so no gloss, everything's just a flat matte finish. Which is what you want when you're hunting. You just want to reduce that shine, of course. When it comes to the scope and the working parts there, I'll go through the whole tape up, but the scope in particular, we've just got to make sure we tape up our scales. We don't want any paint on the scales. Going to tape up our magnification rings there, make sure that we keep those scales visible, and we're also going to tape up our focus here as well, make sure that it's taped up so we don't get any paint on those markings or anywhere that can obstruct the action or the operation of the scope in the future. The most important thing we're going to have to tape on the scope there will be the objective and the ocular lens, making sure that we don't get any overspray on the scope. But you'll see all that as we go through the process. Okay, I've got the gun stripped now. Most of the hard work's done. I've cleaned it using brake fluid. And some of the deeper scratches there, I've actually used a little bit of wet and dry just to rub those out. You can see I've removed the bipod from the stock. I've taken out the bottom metal. I've removed the comb from the stock. I've removed the bolt and I've separated the bolt. You don't have to separate the bolt. I just like to tape it up. For me, it's a little bit easier. I've also removed the barrel and the actual action there itself from the stock. When I go to tape, I'll start down here at the muzzle and start working my way back through. Now when it comes to the scope, as mentioned earlier, paying particular attention there to your objective lens and your ocular lens there, make sure we don't get any overspray on the glass, and being sure that we cover up all the scales on our wing elevation drums and our magnification. I'm also going to tape up around the focus here, just so that when I remove the tape there, I get that nice smooth free running of your focus. So now it's just the, I suppose in some ways, the tedious task of taping. With the tape, it's just a normal masking tape there. I'll tear it by hand. I'll use scissors, and I've also got a couple of scalpels there just to help with the finer cutting when required. So now it's just a matter of taping. so that's the gun masked up. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to actually hang it in my my spray booth, which is just at the corner in the shed there. What I used to hang the parts on are actually just coat hangers, wire coat hangers that I've cut down, made into hooks, just like meat hooks, and then I'll hang the stuff up, and then we'll get ready to spray it. Right, so I've got my temporary spray booth set up. You'll notice I've been able to hang all my parts here on wire hooks. Now I've just made those hooks out of some old metal coat hangers, and I've tried to give everything a bit of separation there so I can get around each part and spray them. I've gone through and double checked that I'm happy with all the masking, especially when it comes to the barrel, the action, the scope. Again, making sure that we don't get any overspray in the places where we don't want that spray paint. So now ready to go. Probably the biggest thing with spray painting is more times than not that less is more. So you're better off holding that can a good 15-20 centimetres away from what you're going to paint there. Give it a nice light coat rather than going heavy and ending up with the chance of running your paint, which you don't want to have happen, because then you've got to clean it off and start again. So nice light coats, lots of coats work best. Here we go, so we'll get stuck in. Well, there you have it, guys. I've gone through, I've given everything a base coat, then I'll follow it up with a mixture of different colours, all flat in nature, to give that disrupted pattern. From here, I'm just going to let this dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'm going to stencil on. In this one, I'm going to have the old Ace of Spades, and then meanwhile, while this is drying, I'm going to work on the Frankenstein stencil for the 6.5 Creedmoor that I painted the other day. Okay, so we're going to look at making a stencil for your rifle, just to give it that little bit more character. This one here, this is the old stencil I built for the 308 there. It's a real simple process. All you've got to do is get yourself a drawing that you like. So this, the new one that I'm going to go for, will be a Frankenstein image. All I'm going to do is print it out onto a piece of paper, laminate it, and then I'm going to actually look at cutting out the shaded areas. So this is the size that I want. I actually practiced on a larger stencil first, okay, which was this one here. So I've cut that out. You can see I've actually give it a go spraying, and that's what it's going to look like. So it's kind of cool, and again it'll give your gun a little bit more character. So I've got my template now. Like I say, all you do is get your picture, photocopy it or print it out on the computer, and then laminate that page. It's got an A4 page there, just laminate that. Have a look. You've got to be a little bit creative with it, I guess, and then always a good idea to practice on a larger version first, and I'm going to use that as my template now to cut out my smaller version. When you're doing the cutting here, good to have a scalpel. I've got a couple here. This is a new one, so nice fine point on the scalpel. I'm just going to copy that, cut out the stencil, and see how it turns out. Well, there you have it. The stencil's complete. Not too bad for such a small stencil. It's really handy to have a fine point scalpel to do that, because I think this round nose, or the scalpel with the larger point on it, I would have had a fair bit of trouble cutting out some of that fine detail, but that hasn't turned out too bad, and I'll end up putting that on the 6.5mm Creedmoor tomorrow. Okay, so the gun's finished drying. I've taken it down off the rack, so I'm just going to reassemble it now, take all the tape off, and see how it turns out. Okay, there we have it. The gun's been put back together now. All the tape's been removed, and it's come up a treat. Looks really good. Well, there we have it, guys. The two guns been given a new lease on life. There, both been freshened up. Only thing left to do now is place the stencil on each of them. So this one here, I'm going to place on the Frankenstein stencil. The 308 here at the front, she'll go the old Ace of Spades. So we'll see how they turn out. Right, so here we've got the finished custom paint job. You can see I've used the stencils on the stocks. I've got the Frankenstein stencil on the Creedmoor there, and I've got the Ace of Spades on the old 308. If you do decide to do a custom paint job yourself, really take the time cleaning and masking up. In the end, it'll give you better results if you spend that extra time doing the little things. Best of luck if you do decide to paint your own rifle, and hope to see you all next time.